when I first saw it. I was like, I'm excited to be kidnapped by Ethan Hawke in this basement.
So recently The Black Phone 2 released, and it's getting all sorts of positive attention. Financially, it's a huge hit, and it appears to be reviewing pretty well amongst fans and critics. Some people are even saying that it's one of the best horror movie sequels of all time. I don't know about that because, aliens exist, but whatever. Now, truth be told, when this movie was first announced, I thought, why?
Why?
The first one was a pretty damn solid movie, and wrapped things up pretty well. A spoiler, but the grabber dies at the end, and the main boy escapes. Where would you even take that? A prequel? But it was revealed to be a direct sequel and continuing the story, so then I was even more worried. But I stopped and thought for a moment about the first film. You see, The Black Phone is based on a short story of the same name, printed in a collection called 20th Century Ghost by Joe Hill. The short story is, well, short. It's only about 20 pages. So the movie added and expanded a lot. For example, everything with the sister and the family was added for the movie. Same with the scenes with the police investigations, and a lot of extra scenes with the grabber's brother were added as well. And several scenes of Finn in the basement were either added or expanded upon. So for the first movie, they actually added quite a bit. And the sequel was being done by the same writers and director. So I decided to be a bit more optimistic. Maybe they could come up with some good stuff. Then I finally got to see a trailer, and it did pique my interest. To be honest, it did really seem like they were taking a page out of Nightmare on Elm Street's book by having a supernatural villain that can attack you in your dreams. But I was curious of how they were going to approach that concept and idea. So I was curious, but still pretty cautious going in. And how was it? I mean, it was alright. I had some thoughts. I rambled on long enough. Let's get into it now.
What is he doing?
He's gooning on the other side with that fucking baby oil.
So The Black Phone 2 takes place 3 years after the events of the first film, and this time around, Finn's sister, Gwen, is sleepwalking and seeing strange things in her dreams. Stuff about a camp up in the mountains along with several kids who died there. Feeling compelled to figure out what all this means, her and Finn head to the camp and get snowed in. That's when it's revealed that the grabber is back from beyond the grave, and this time around, he wants Gwen. So it's a pretty interesting setup, and the movie itself leans way more into the supernatural elements than the first did. The way they decided to expand upon the first film is by exploring the lore and backstory of not only the grabber, but Finn and Gwen's mother as well. And of course, wouldn't you know it, the two have some overlap in their history. While I do think this is interesting on paper, in practice I think it's all pretty underwhelming in a few areas. And it's mainly because there's a lot going on in this movie. Several small things that it touches on here and there, but doesn't fully explore. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about the pacing, because it feels a bit strange. It's kind of a drag in the beginning. It spends a decent amount of time setting up Gwen and her visions, along with her sleepwalking before they finally hit to the camp. And it's not until almost 45 minutes in that the grabber finally makes his appearance, and that's when he becomes a more active threat in the movie. But ironically, for how slow it is in the beginning, the ending is the opposite. They have the final encounter and battle all wrapped up very quickly. It's like once the characters realize what they have to do to stop the grabber, they end up just doing it, and they really only have one more sequence with the grabber, then it's over. So it's a pretty slow start to a very quick conclusion. And the movie's not long, by the way. It's like an hour and 50 minutes with credits, so realistically it's like an hour and 45. And you try to fit as much as they can into that runtime, which kind of leads to the bigger issue that I have with the film. It feels like they try to expand in several different directions, but because they want to add a lot, some things just get skimped over or not given as much attention as I would have liked. For example, the grabber and his whole Freddy Krueger thing he's got going on. He can attack people in their dreams, at least he does that to Gwen, but it's not explored or utilized as much in the movie as you thought it was going to be. Like, he doesn't spend the entire movie terrorizing everybody. It's really like 3 sequences where it happens. And like I already stated, the grabber doesn't come in until about 45 minutes in, so that's when that stuff actually starts happening. So he doesn't terrorize the characters as much as you think. It's only for a few sequences, and even though the stuff there is pretty cool, I feel like they didn't take full advantage of it. So this whole aspect was just a little underwhelming to me personally. I was really looking forward to see how creative they would get with this stuff. What's also interesting is that throughout the movie, it seems like he can only get you while you're sleeping, but throughout the final battle, he's attacking everyone, and they're fully awake. They just can't see him. I guess to be fair, it was never stated that you had to be asleep for him to get you. I just assumed that was the case because Gwen is the only person that really has encounters with him, and she's asleep. Speaking of sleep, Gwen enters this realm when she's sleepwalking. This is where all the supernatural and paranormal stuff happens, and visually it's pretty damn great. It looks very grainy, like old school 16mm film or something. It's to show that, yeah, she's asleep in this scene, so that's what's going on. And these sections are pretty good. You get some really bloody, gory, and violent imagery here. Yeah, so these sections I don't really have many complaints about, except for one thing that happens later on that's kind of strange. You see, it's revealed that Gwen has powers in this otherworldly realm, but it's honestly just 2 scenes. One where she discovers that she can do stuff, then she does it, and then again at the end. Yeah, it's very touch and go and really quick. And this movie does that a lot with several other things as well. Another example would be Finn. Finn is mentally not well after his experience in the first film. He's all fucked up from that. And I wish they focused a bit more on that. They just touch on it in a few scenes here and there, but that's about it. Granted, the scenes they show are pretty good, but I just wish it was more of a focal point in the film. Instead, it's just kind of touched on here and there before being wrapped up at the end. But without a doubt, the stuff that gets the most attention is the new lore and backstory for the grabber, as well as Finn and Gwen's mom. They focus a lot on the camp. the missing kids, the fact that their mom used to go there, as well as the grabber being involved in the area and how their past all connect. They build a big mystery around all this stuff, and while it is interesting, the problem is it demands so much attention that other things that I just listed start to feel underwhelming or underutilized. The grabber terrorizing people in their sleep, Finn's trauma, Gwen's powers in the sleep realm. It's all just introduced and touched on very quickly before it moves on to something else. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, there's also a so-so romance here in the middle of all this. Yeah, I honestly didn't care too much for it either. It's between Gwen and this character named Ernesto, who's actually the older brother of Robin from the last film, who was one of the kids that was taken. So that was a neat connection, but the romance itself was very just lukewarm, and I didn't really care about it at all. Again, there's just so much stuff going on that I just completely forgot that this was in the movie. They just introduced so many things, and it's because they try to expand so many different directions that some things just weren't explored or showcased as much as I wanted them to be. And I do like this stuff. It's all pretty interesting, and there are some really good moments throughout the whole movie, and they all involve this stuff in some way. But as a whole package, it just doesn't click as well as I wanted it to. What was also surprising is the amount of humor that's here. They throw in a few moments of brevity here and there with a few jokes, and honestly, most of it just didn't really land for me. Honestly, it felt a little out of place, mainly because I don't remember the first one having that much humor in it. I remember the stuff with the brother being kind of funny, but that's it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like MCU quippy banter, but there are clear attempts here to make you laugh. And just for me, I didn't really vibe with it. I think this should be a good time to mention that despite all my issues with this movie, it's actually not that bad. I'm more so underwhelmed rather than disappointed with it. It has a lot of cool ideas, it has an interesting story, and I do like how they expand the lore and backstory of the characters. There were moments where I was just locked in and enjoying what I was seeing, but there are just so many things that just fall short for me. It just could have been better, especially if they narrowed their focus and stick to a few really good ideas, instead of introducing so many that they just barely touch on. It would have made for a stronger movie, I think. But as it is, it still is a pretty entertaining movie overall. Was it a necessary sequel? No. But is it a bad sequel? Also no. It's not as tightly put together as the first film, but it ramps up on the violence, the gore, and the supernatural and paranormal elements, and despite being slow in the beginning, when all this stuff is happening, it is pretty entertaining. There are some great sequences. When it comes to the filmmaking aspect of it, it's pretty damn good. Visually, it's great. Probably Scott Derrickson's most creative horror film. The practical effects and stunt work they did here were also done very well. And in terms of performances, the main cast was good all around. Ethan Hawke as the grabber was just as good, if not better than he was in the first, and Finn and Gwen are even better this time around, which is really impressive considering how young they are, and hell, they were great in the first film. The side characters were so-so. Mondo was pretty solid, but everyone else was just fine, but not really memorable. So I didn't hate my time with it. There were just moments of frustration throughout. Now, I have been seeing people say they prefer the sequel over the first one, and I kind of understand why. They are two different vibes. They kind of go for two different types of stories. The first one was basically a story about a kidnapped kid trying to escape a serial killer with some supernatural elements thrown in, while this one feels more like a supernatural slasher in a way, turning up the violence and the blood and the gore. The first one was a bit simpler, whereas this one has a lot more going on. Me personally, I prefer the first film. I think it's better put together. It just feels a lot more complete. Whereas this one has a lot of really cool ideas, and is very creative, and is most of the time pretty entertaining. It just doesn't feel as polished or complete as the first. So yeah, I didn't hate my time with it. Thought it was okay. Don't like it as much as the first, but overall, yeah, it's alright. That's all I really gotta say. Anyway, I think it's gonna do it for the video, so see ya.
Oh, God. What are you doing? No.
Little bitch, she stole my moves!
I've seen this on Pornhub. You foolish fiends hold me down and take turns fucking me. Then you eat my dick. Come on. My body for the bukkake.
That's disgusting.